Marlon first tasted true solitude on a muggy late afternoon in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. He was barely 8 years old, perched on the edge of the children's home's wooden veranda, staring out at a dusty yard and the distant shape of coconut trees silhouetted against a blazing orange sky. In the children's home where he grew up, other boys jostled and teased, and the younger children oftentimes cried for attention. But Marlon remained quiet, a boy with large, curious eyes who'd learned at a young age that his needs were not a priority. He knew little of his family. His mother and his father, they were lost somewhere in the haze of poverty or perhaps tragedy, and all he had as a token of their existence was himself. There was a custom at the home where older children helped the younger ones to bathe, to dress, and to study. But for Marlon, who struggled to decipher the swirls and curves of letters and numbers, education remained a locked door. He knew the letters of the alphabet, but forming them into words that made sense was akin to chasing shadows around his mind. He learned early to pretend, moving his finger along the page as if he understood, and nodding quietly whenever the teacher's eyes flicked his way. The stigma of illiteracy weighed on him, and he built invisible barriers around his fears, burying his shame beneath a calm facade. At 17, the home's administrators placed him in a vocational training program that taught carpentry and farming. He gravitated toward farming, and soon after took a chance on an overseas work program, one of those seasonal farm work jobs in America that Jamaicans have done forever. This was a well-trodden path for men eager to send money back home, and he signed the paperwork without fully understanding every sentence, but guided by trust in the older men who said, "This is a good opportunity, Marlon. You will come back with money for help yourself." The day he landed in America, the air felt thinner, cooler, and electric with possibility. He arrived at a small orchard in upstate New York alongside other Jamaican men, some of whom he befriended on the flight. They settled into a cramped barrack-style house on the farm, and life became a cycle of early morning harvests, even baskets of apples, sorting and packing, with the sweet scent of the fruit mixing with sweat and the damp earth. He rarely ventured off the farm at first. Nervousness about his limited reading and writing haunted him. When handed a farm, he'd squint and fumble, and then he'd find someone else to take a look and tell me what to write. This made some men chuckle, but among them, a few understood. They knew illiteracy wasn't stupidity. It was just a wound, one that could be healed with determination and tender care. But still, Marlon's pride was fragile. He'd been raised without consistent affection, and so he'd built a stoic front. According to attachment theory, though he wouldn't have known the term, Marlon's early life had left him with anxious avoidant patterns. He hesitated to reach out, to ask for help, fearing rejection or scorn. He had learned that it was safer to act as if he needed nothing. One late September afternoon, while helping load crates of apples onto a truck destined for a local market, he met Valeria. She was a young Mexican-American woman with honey-colored eyes and curly dark hair pulled into a loose ponytail. She wore jeans, dusty boots, and a warm smile. Valeria came to pick up an order of apples for her uncle's bodega in the city, and when she asked for the paperwork, Marlon felt a stone lodge in his throat. He mumbled something about getting the foreman to help, and Valeria noticed his discomfort. But instead of pressing, she just smiled kindly and waited. Over the next few weeks, Valeria returned more frequently, and she and Marlon got to talking in halting English and Spanish, sprinkled with patois. They found common ground in their shared experiences of migration and hardship. They hung around the farm, discussing differences in food, music, and exchanging childhood memories. Valeria had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in Queens, moving in and out of foster care herself. She recognized Marlon's quiet vulnerabilities, and he in turn felt an odd safety in her presence. Perhaps because he sensed that she too carried some invisible scars. It was not long before they started going out on small outings, a walk around a nearby lake, a visit to the local diner, or going to look at the leaves changing color in the fall. These were moments where Marlon felt a slow unlocking of something inside of him. Valeria, unlike many people he'd met, did not judge him or his difficulties. When he confessed, voice trembling, that he struggled with reading and writing, Valeria reached across the diner table and squeezed his hand reassuringly. Marlon, that doesn't make you less than anyone else, she said softly. We can work on it together. In psychological terms, Valeria provided what's known as a secure base, allowing Marlon's previously anxious avoidant attachment style to shift. He began to trust that not every revelation would lead to shame. And with her encouragement, he started attending evening literacy classes at a local community center. It was a humbling experience because he was older than some students, but still younger than others who'd never had a chance to learn. He painstakingly traced each letter, mouthed every sound, and embraced the arduous process of self-improvement. Valeria's presence in his life was a major motivation, and each week he greeted her with a slightly firmer grasp on the written word. Their romance was swift and intense, and by December, while the world outside grew cold and white, their affection for each other burned. Marlon's contract was nearing its end, but Valeria didn't want him to leave, so they decided on a whim to elope. It was a rash decision, one that many of Marlon's co-workers teased him about, but they were happy for him, and he was tired of living tentatively. He wanted a family, he wanted a home, he wanted somewhere to truly belong. They drove to the town clerk's office, signed the papers, with Marlon painstakingly writing his name, proud now that he understood most of the words on the form and emerged as husband and wife. No frills, no fuss, just two dreamers holding hands in the crisp winter air. Marriage did not magically remove his insecurities. Some evenings, Marlon would sit at their small apartment's kitchen table, frowning at a children's picture book and sounding out words slowly while Valeria prepared their dinner. He felt like a child again, struggling to be understood, but yet, with every page he conquered, he felt a piece of shame fall away. Valeria celebrated even his smallest victories. The first time he read a street sign correctly, the first time he filled out a short grocery list without help, providing him with positive reinforcement. As time passed, Marlon began to dream bigger. He wanted more than seasonal farm work. He wanted a stable life, a profession where he could take pride in his skills and be a consistent provider for his wife. Drawing on his experience back in Jamaica, he began to work odd carpentry jobs in the neighborhood. He learned to read building plans, measure wood lengths, and communicate with customers. He saved up every cent he could and eventually enrolled in business classes at the nearby community college. He struggled at first, often staying up late into the night to decipher textbooks. Valeria often found him asleep with his head on a stack of notes, and she would quietly lay a blanket over him. In developmental psychology, there's a notion that early trauma can be mitigated by later supportive relationships and experiences. Marlon's relationship with Valeria, his burgeoning literacy, and his incremental successes in carpentry acted as a powerful corrective emotional experience. He was rewiring himself, building internal narratives that did not revolve around failure, shame, or abandonment. After a few years with Valeria's encouragement and his own steadfast determination, Marlon earned enough to open a carpentry workshop. He specialized in custom furniture, blending Caribbean aesthetics with modern lines. His chairs and his tables became very popular in the local artisan market. He was no longer the uncertain farm worker who stumbled over words. He was a craftsman, an entrepreneur, and a husband who strived to be a better human each day. Yet, amid his rising success, Marlon never forgot the children back at the home in Jamaica. He remembered nights laying awake on the thin mattress, the uncertain future looming large, wishing, praying that someone would care about him. Now, with more means and cemented stability, he wanted to give back. He reached out to his old children's home in St. Elizabeth to find out how he could help. The director was surprised to hear from the former resident who had long faded from his memory, but he was grateful for the proffered assistance. Marlon arranged shipments of school supplies, books, and tablets. He sponsored literacy programs, ensuring that other children wouldn't have to struggle as he did. He also donated ergonomic chairs and desks for the study hall, whose construction he was funding. His philanthropy extended beyond material goods. He partnered with the Jamaican American Cultural Association, raising funds to hire counselors trained in trauma-informed care. Inspired by the psychological theories he learned secondhand through Valeria's social work friends. Marlon wanted the children to also have emotional support and attachments to caring adults who understood and could help them successfully navigate their pain. He decided to return to the children's home for a visit, and it was emotionally challenging for him. The first time he set foot on that weathered veranda after so many years, he felt a surge of old insecurities, loneliness, fear, and uncertainty. He became 8 years old all over again, a little boy, small and alone. But walking through the halls, now with literate eyes, an open mind, and a confident posture, he realized that he had reinterpreted his past. He was not defined by what he lacked in childhood. He was defined by what he had built from it. The children watched him curiously. He introduced himself simply. "My name Marlon. Me used to live here too, you know. And I know it is hard sometimes, but you have to believe in yourself." He sat to read a short storybook aloud, haltingly, but with determination, showing them that learning was possible, even for someone who started late. The children giggled at his awkwardness, but clapped when he finished. It was a mere moment, but in the psychological lens of self-efficacy theory, it was crucial. By modeling perseverance, he gave them a concrete example that growth and transformation were possible. Marlon's journey illuminates the complex interplay between early life adversity, cultural transitions, and personal resilience. He evolved from a frightened orphan boy into a man who embraced literacy, love, and entrepreneurship. He challenged the internalized narrative of worthlessness that had plagued him throughout his earlier life, a narrative common among children raised in institutions or raised overall without consistent caregivers and with inadequate affection. Psychologically, he harnessed a secure attachment figure in Valeria. He confronted his vulnerabilities and he replaced shame with dignity. Marlon turned trauma into motivation, channeling his pain into empathy and support for the next generation. Back in America, his business continued to grow. He found that many clients, oftentimes families setting up their first homes or immigrants searching for furniture that reminded them of their homelands, connected with his story. He became known not just for his skillful craftsmanship, but for his kind spirit and his generosity. Articles were written about him in local magazines, praising him as a community person who had overcome so much to give back. Oftentimes at night, sitting on his balcony with Valeria, watching the moonlight wash over their modest but cozy home, Marlon sometimes reflected on his life's trajectory. Had he never left Jamaica, he might have spent decades trapped in illiteracy, barely surviving on subsistence farming. Had he never met Valeria, he might never have found the courage to confront his insecurities. Instead, he now stood as a testament to the power of supportive relationships, education, and personal grit. He thought of those children in a home back in St. Elizabeth, their minds opening to worlds beyond the island's shores. He imagined their futures unfolding differently from his past. Maybe one of them would become a teacher, a doctor, a writer, anything they chose to be. Maybe one would even decide to give back to the home like him. That thought gave him peace. In the muted landscape of upstate New York, with the hush of distant traffic and a light breeze drifting through the summer night, Marlon took Valeria's hand and he squeezed it gently in gratitude. They had found each other across languages and borders. They had broken old patterns of silence and shame. In their union and their work, they had become something more than survivors. They had become lovers of themselves, to each other, and of life, healers and facilitators. They extended hope back to the island that had birthed Marlon into hardship, and which now, through his determined love and effort, might birth new generations into brighter tomorrows.